Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all my Cardfight Vanguard, Star Vader, Chaos Breaker, Dragon deck profile for standard format post clan selection volume 1. This is probably the most requested deck from the clan selection that I've been seeing from people on the channel. It's a very interesting deck, a powerful one at that, focusing on Chaos Breaker Dragon's ability to steal away your opponent's imaginary gifts and then use them for his own, and also while providing them itself, also benefiting from your opponent having locked units. It's a definite take on the Star Vader Chaos Breaker Dragon from the original series, but also with just an interesting twist to focus more into standard format. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the grade 3 monsters, I'm running 4 Star Vader, Chaos Breaker Dragon. What's very interesting about this entire deck is there's no actual monster with any gift markers. Chaos Breaker Dragon focuses on giving your opponent gift markers and then taking them away for itself later on. On Vanguard or Rearguard during your turn, if your opponent has a locked card, this unit gets power plus 10,000. And on the Vanguard circle, once per turn, you can counterblast 1. Your opponent gets an imaginary gift force. You choose one of your opponent's rearguards and lock it. So while providing them with the imaginary gift force, and then you choose a rearguard and lock it, you're basically taking away their usage for that force marker depending on where they place it. And then also just for the fact that you give them a locked card, it also gives your Chaos Breaker Dragons, whether they be on Vanguard circle or Rearguard circle, the additional plus 10,000 power. And on Vanguard, when your opponent's locked card is unlocked, you can Soul Blast 1, retire that unlocked unit, you draw a card, and your opponent removes a total of 2 markers from his or her circles or protect from his or her hand. If you get an imaginary gift force for each marker removed. So it basically provides for the turn you miss going into an imaginary gift force. You gave your opponent one, so they'll have 2 to get rid of as long as they were able to obtain one on their prior turn as well. And then basically giving you for each marker provided means you just make up for that loss that happened. And very, very strong for sure, because then you're basically, like I said, taking away what you gave them in the first place. And then having the hold locked means you also can take care of some of their rear guards as well as taking away defensive capabilities of the protect markers in their own hand. And then as for the backup grade 3, we really just needed resources that you can build off of Chaos Breaker Dragon. So for the grade 3 backup, we're running 4 Nordstrom Dragon. On Rearguard, when placed, if your Vanguard is a Cyber Dragon, choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or greater rearguards, bind it face down, then retire this unit and countercharge 1. So that's all that Nordstrom Dragon is for the deck. It's just set up onto the Rearguard circle, and Chaos Breaker Dragon is a Cyber Dragon. So you can make full use of this card when you call it to rear, and you will use your counterblast quite a lot for giving your opponent the imaginary gift force and then making them lock their units. So you just want to be able to continue to do that. And with this card being your countercharge power, you definitely want to max out the numbers for it. The biggest weakness is if you obviously have to ride into this card because your main play in the deck is Chaos Breaker Dragon. So most of the time it's just the risk that you have to take, but still the resource pays off the reward when you open up this card for also being able to take care of your opponent's grade 2 or greater rearguards by binding them face down. And that is it for the grade 3s. We'll now move on to the grade 2s. One of the best backups to Chaos Breaker Dragon is Bisection Star Vader Zirconium. On Vanguard or Rear, when placed, if you have a Vanguard with Star Vader and its card name, counterblast 1, your opponent looks at the top card of his or her deck and puts it on an open rearguard as a locked card. If that locked card was placed in the back row, you draw a card, and this unit gets plus 10,000 power to end of turn. So basically, it makes your opponent decide whether or not they want to take advantage of this play by either placing that card in the back row, making it so their front row is open for other attacks they can do. But if not, and they place it in the back row, you'll get the additional draw and give this card plus 10,000 power. And if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater and he or she has a locked card, all of your Vanguard's original critical become 2. So once again, scary, and also for the fact that you can rely on this card to make up for the fact that you won't get an imaginary gift force 2 with Chaos Breaker Dragon when you ride this card. So you can at least make it so Zirconium can give Chaos Breaker Dragon that additional critical with its own skill, just for having the lock card that it's definitely going to give your opponent with its initial play. And for some additional backup for the grade 2s, I'm also running 4 Blast Monk of the Thundering Foot. On Vanguard or Rear, when it attacks a Vanguard, counterblast 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and bind it face down. If you chose a grade 2 card or greater, you soul charge 1. Now, this card is very useful because soul is definitely something you'll eat up the most in this deck, whether it be for your Chaos Breaker Dragon and its Soul Blast, or just for the setup of a bunch of other different cards that we run in the deck for either locking cards or just additional search. So running 4 of this, I would say, is definitely necessary. You want to build up that soul as quickly as you can just so you can have it for the resources to use later. And it's much easier to make up for your counterblast, because with our Nordstrom Dragon being the backup for that play, you can rely on that for the counterblast that this card and Chaos Breaker Dragon will use. And then for some of the lower numbers for the grade 2s, I also run 2 Lady Battler of Gravity Well on rearguard when it attacks. Soul Blast 1, discard a card from your hand, look at the top card of your deck, put it on rear as a lock card, and draw a card. It's just more setup, so we can get some more rear guards for the plays, being able to have that as an option, depending on what cards you call out. It's just good for the, setup for some potentially better cards for your rear guard. If you didn't want to run any Lady Battler of Gravity Well, I also run the 2 Last Cross Marinelle with this one on rear when placed from hand. If your opponent has a face down card in his or her Vanguard Circle or Bind Zone, counterblast 1, choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards, bind them face down. If you do not bind 2 cards, you countercharge 1 and soul charge 1. So more build up for soul charge with all the other plays. There's not too many cards in the entire game that lock cards, so just being able to rely on other cards like Zirconium for a good amount of those plays for your lock plays, along with Chaos Breaker Dragon, while relying on Marinelle and Blast Monk just for more setup for some of your soul charge plays, and also countercharging based on this card. But with this card working well with binding, it'll work good with Thundering Foot, and then also with your Nordstrom Dragon, depending on the play you go for. And that is it for the grade 2s. We'll now move on to the grade 1s. I run 4 Starvader Craving Claw on Vanguard or Rearguard. When it attacks or the attack it boosted hits a Vanguard, look at 5 cards on the top of your deck, reveal up to 1 card with Starvader from among them, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. So this gives you the search power, going off of the fact that you don't want to ride Nordstrom Dragon, just being able to have the option to search into Chaos Breaker Dragon, since it is a Starvader, or even just the option to search out Zirconium, makes it all the better, and a definite 4 of for it being your potential go-to ride target. And on Rearguard, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, put this unit into your soul, choose up to 1 of your opponent's lock cards, and unlock it. If you unlocked a card, choose 1 of your opponent's rear guards other than that unlock card and lock it. So not only will it unlock and you basically trigger your Chaos Breaker Dragon earlier, giving you the force markers that much earlier in the game as well, it just gives you the option to then unlock another one, because then when that one unlocks, you can just use Chaos Breaker again, depending on how often your opponent gives themselves imaginary gifts for you to take away with Chaos Breaker Dragon. And I also run 4 Crunching Deleter Baruel, one of the only deleters that I run in the deck, just for its easy resource when placed. Soul Blast 1, and your opponent cannot turn his or her cards face up during his or her turns next until his or her turn's next end phase. And with this card, it means they can't countercharge, they can't do things like unlock, putting a card face up. It just basically can't be done. And I thought that was very interesting with this card, being for the fact that it'll lock them out of a lot of plays, or just recovering resources with a good number of their different grade 1s, 2s, and 3s they may call out to Rearguard to rebuild resources, just like we try to do with cards like Blast Monk of the Thundering Foot, or even our Marinelle, you name it. So I like to run this card for that Rearguard option, and it will use up the soul again, but we have plenty of cards to recover that soul. If you don't want to use it, you can always just have it basically for the setup option, or even a ride target if you don't open into Craving Claw. And then for a few other of the lower numbers for the grade 1s, I also run 3 Destiny Dealer on Vanguard when placed, with the top card of your deck on rear as a lock card. So this is going back to Gravity Well, just being more resources. It will unlock during the end of your turn, giving you another unit on the field, especially early game, where you can just have these cards later on to use. And on Rearguard, once per turn, you can Soul Blast 1, look at the top card of your deck, and put it down on a Rearguard as a lock card. Once again, going off of the resources, whether it be on Vanguard or Rearguard, you can rely on Destiny Dealer to give you just cards to use later on. So I'm only running 3, though. We have some other important cards in the deck. If you wanted to bump up the numbers, you can try and take out the Baruel for any other additional copies, or you can even reduce the number of Baruel and Destiny Dealer to run more of the grade 3 Searcher for Link Joker, but that's player preference also if you have that resource available to you. And then for the rest of the grade 1s, I run 2 Opener of Dark Gates. When placed, if your opponent has 2 or less rear guards, Soul Blast 1, look at 2 cards on top of your deck, call to 1 with a grade less than or equal to your opponent's Vanguard from among them to rear, and put the remaining on the bottom of the deck in any order. Once again, just more resources. Just like with Destiny Dealer, you can rely on Opener of Dark Gates just for a Soul Blast to give you more rear guards, and it doesn't lock them like Destiny Dealer, it just gives you cards on the field that are that much easier to make use of for your attacks. And that is it for the grade zeros. For the, I said grade zero, for grade ones. For the grade zeros, our starter is Micro Hull Draco Kid. Just, I would say, the most fitting. We have Deleter starters and, Messiah starters, and also just some of the other Link Joker cards. But Micro Hull Draco Kid, I would say, is the most fitting with the art style with Chaos Breaker Dragon. So is my starter of choice in the deck. For the trigger lineup, I still went with the 8 critical for the deck. I would say it's the most pressure, along with Chaos Breaker being able to deal gift markers. So just the 4 Asteroid Wolf and the 4 Axino Dragon. And then for the Sentinel, I'm running the draw trigger. We just need the draws for the power in the deck. So 4 Flowers and Vacuum Cosmo Wreath for this spot. And then lastly, for the heal triggers, just the 4 Lady Healer of Torn World. I'd say is the most fitting trigger for the deck, especially just going off of the Link Joker art style for Star Vaders altogether. And that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Like I said, this is definitely one of the most requested decks from the Clan Selection Volume 1, so I wanted to get this deck out as quickly as I could, and I'm glad with the results. I hope you all enjoyed it as well, and until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.